Welcome to episode 8 of Quantum Talks Healing Through Conversations with your girls, Vanessa at My Celestial Life
and Christine at Solely Rooted.
We hope that you and your loved ones are well. Today, we discuss the return to our ancestral lands.
We come to you with an open heart. May this conversation inspire and provide you with all that you need at this time. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
All right. Peace, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I don't know if you all noticed, but we took a little break, and I am grateful for the little hiatus that we had. Took some time to reflect and to catch up on everything, and as well as to decipher and to process all the energy that's taking place in the planet, the influx of information and energy just pouring in right now. There's so many things happening in the world, in our lives. So it was good to take a time or a moment to reflect and to process and to rest, So I'm so grateful to be back. For those of you who don't know, episode 7 was live on IG. We did that last week, so check it out. We are back today with another episode on returning to the ancestral lands. And Chris, you had mentioned that you wanted to talk about this and you felt it deep in your spirit to talk about returning to the ancestral lands. And tell everyone, what does that mean for you?
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode. We touched on this on the live that we did last week or the week before, and I feel like it is such an important topic that we decided to dive even deeper in this topic. And March of last year, I had did a trip with my family and some friends, and we went to Puerto Rico last March. And that was the first time I had touched the soils of Borinquen since I was a kid. And first of all, I couldn't believe that it had been so long that I returned to the motherland, you can basically say, of my ancestors, of those who came before me. And when I was there, it just, first of all, I got emotional when we were driving from the airport to where we were staying at for the first night. I was just looking around and I was just taking in the air and I was just taking in the feel, and I just couldn't, especially from what I had been going through the year before, the fact that I was able to be in that place and I was able to go back home. It was an overwhelming sense of emotion, and just like, I couldn't even describe it. And even to this day that I've reflected on it so much, I can't even really put into words how it felt, but it felt like a piece of me that probably I've been wandering around in the ethers, or just a piece of me that was a little lost, that I didn't even know that was lost, found me again. And it was just like a coming together on another level. And I was just like, I'm never staying away from the land of my ancestors for this long again. Like, I'm not going to allow anything in life to ever keep me away or not realize the importance of what returning home looks like. So we went, and then we went to the jungle at Yunque there, and I just felt like the spirits of the land, my ancestors, the Orisha, the deities, the Taino. I just felt like just the entire spirit of La Isla just hugged me and whispered into my ear, "Welcome home. Like, we've been waiting for you." And it was just, I just got goosebumps. It was just like one of those, I put my feet in the water, and the amount of gratitude that I felt. Like, I didn't feel a sense of I haven't felt a sense of belonging the way I felt when I was in that space. So that trip right there, And ever since then, I started to just reflect on how important it is, or how I felt, how important it is for us to really sit there and make returning to the lands of our ancestors, returning home, a priority. Because a lot of us who live here in America, and some people even who live in Europe or things of that nature, that's not the native homeland. That's not the, like, it's home, like New York will ever always forever be home. But it is like still like where our ancestors we come from, that's home. That's where everything started. That's where just a lot of people who came before us, they had to come to these lands maybe out of necessity, or maybe because they were told there'd be a better life or things like that. So when we, as those who are coming up now, when we take the time to go back there, is not only healing for us, but it's also healing for our lineage. So when I went back this past January, which was kind of, it was like a little unexpected for me to go, that feeling of returning home came right back. And this time, um, I was able to return to the home, the pueblo, the city in which my grandmother grew up in, Guayama. And I was able to visit like her favorite spot, her favorite place, and I could just feel her with me the entire time. My grandmother passed in 2016, and she would always speak about home. She will always talk about Puerto Rico. She will always talk about Guayama and her childhood and how much she loved it and how I should never ever forget about it. And when I went there, I could just feel the alegría, the happiness that my grandmother felt. I felt her inner child just so happy that I went and I was able to go see it. Like I felt her with me the entire time when I was walking through the streets, when I took a picture in front of this fountain that she loved going. It's like in the middle of the square, so it's like this old fountain that is kind of like a landmark, and it's been there for years. I believe it's been there since she was a little girl. I'm not, don't quote me on that, but all in all, just to say, I felt the healing that passed not only through me, but it was down to my grandmother, and then from my grandmother to her mom, and then my grandmother had a bunch of sisters. She had 10 other siblings. So I'm pretty sure, even though I don't know all of them by name, I know they were probably right there with her, like, Mira, she went. Mira, mira, look where she's at. Oh shit, it's home or whatever. You know how they be. You know how they be. So that was just something. It felt like such an honor, and I'm the type of person, when I experience something so healing, I think about my friends back home. I think about my people. I think about our people and how a lot of us who our parents and grandparents had to leave home and come over here to America. I think about how I know in the back of their minds, they probably wish they could just go back home and live the life in which they want to live. So, in the times that we are currently in, I feel, especially now, for yeah, pleasure, yeah, vacation, but for the healing of the generations behind and the generations ahead, to set the example and to set that tradition back to really returning to where we come from. And I remember you also saying, we were talking about this before we did this episode, and you were saying, yeah, and even if people can't really get back to maybe like the physical homeland, that they allow themselves to at least return to nature, or return to a place where nature is prominent, because that's where we come from. Like that island vibe, that naturistic vibe, a lot of us, that's home. That's the vibe in which we come from. But nature, period, allowing yourself to really be immersed and to really feel the earth and get reacquainted with the earth is key. It's always been key, but now that she's basically crying out for us, like a mom cries out for her lost child, I feel like it's time that we really take that shit serious and we reach out the way she's reaching out for us. We reach back in some way, shape, or form.
Mhm. Yeah, when you mentioned that returning to the ancestral lands, that's immediately what came to me, that we are not only returning to the ancestral lands, but returning to our mother, returning to the source, so that we can be healed, so that we can be nurtured and restored. So Earth is crying right now. She is begging for us to return home, right? And ultimately, home, a lot of us can sit here and say, you know what, I am my home, or where I am is home. That's all true. But it's a process to get there. And the earth is begging for us to kind of come back into alignment with ourselves and with her and then with each other. So it's a process that has to be taken to get there so that we can be restored and bring balance back onto the planet. It like you can do this for yourself, but ultimately we are here. Many of us are here to restore the balance on the planet. And the earth is begging for us to do that. Once we do that, then we can see true change. Then we can see um, equality and peace. And, we're at a point where there's so much suffering in the world where it's like we're choosing to suffer, you know? We are in the age of realization where we know we have choices. So why are we choosing to stay where we are in this suffering? So by returning to our ancestral lands, which can mean returning to nature as well, because there's a lot of people who would argue and say, you know what, well, we're not from there, we're from here, right? Which is all true. So go into nature, reconnect with your land, reconnect with the soil that you were born on. I was born here in Brooklyn, New York. So Brooklyn will always forever be my home. Brooklyn runs through my brains. And notice I said Brooklyn because Brooklyn is its own country. You know what I'm saying? I'm
That's how I feel about the Bronx.
home. It's different here in New York City. So but for me, I would probably want to go upstate New York, get into nature and climb the mountains or something like that. So, but of course, with my ancestral lineage being from the Caribbean as well, that also runs through my brain, through my veins, and I feel it. Like St. Lucia is calling me right now. She's like, "Yo, when you're coming home, child?" Like it's like, "Hey, like it's like, yo, she's like, hello, Earth is really, really seeking our attention right now. Just as we rely on it to sustain us, provide food, shelter, and all of that, we have to pour into it. We have to, this is the thing, right? We tend to hold on to so much. Going back to that idea that we're choosing to suffer, we are holding so much. We're holding on to so much energy. All we literally have to do is place our hands in that dirt, pour that energy back in, because Mother Nature doesn't understand what that energy is. She just understands, oh, it's my child connected with me. So let's connect. Let's connect. Let me feel you. Let me feel you. And then you're feeling her. So it's like in that process, you are transmuting the energy. You're being restored, replenished. So it doesn't matter what it is that you've been holding on to, just go and place your hands in that soil and it'll be transmuted. Then now you'll see that all that suffering you've been doing was your own choice. Another thing that came to me in this conversation and just thinking about it, meditating on it, is that not only are we being called to restore and to replenish and to heal, but what it seems like is that with everything going on in the world right now, we're also going to gain protection from the land. But returning to our ancestral land, our ancestral home, so that we can be restored, healed, replenished, and gain that protection. Because look at what's going on in Ohio. Look at what's going on with all the earthquakes and everything going. These are natural disasters, just happening. And that's because the earth is trying to get our attention. It's the same thing with our body. When our body manifests an illness, a disease, or something like that, our body is saying like, hey, pay attention to this part of your body because we've been trying to get your attention this whole time and you've been holding on to this energy right here. So boom, we're going to manifest into something physical for you to pay attention. That's literally what the earth is doing right now, right? So those of us, the earth children who choose to reconnect with nature, reconnect with the earth, reconnect with the land, we will gain that protection from her. You see it? So this is all that has been coming to me, and it's a lot deeper than that. And I don't want people to get caught up in, oh, well, I ain't from Africa, or I ain't from here, I'm from America. You know, there's a lot of that kind of talk too, but truly hear what we're trying to tell you. And this is the thing too, like, it doesn't matter even where you are, like Europe is indigenous. You know what I'm saying? All the lands of the earth are indigenous. It doesn't matter where you go. If you are a child of the earth, you will connect with that soil, period. So this is what it is right now.
Yeah, I feel you. And I feel like, well, for me personally, like the more that I allowed myself to go out into nature and to sit under a tree or, walk barefoot in the grass, sit out in the sun, a lot of things would come to me that never came to me before. Like looking for direction, looking for clarity, looking for answers, looking for this, looking for that. Yo, doing that, something so simple as that did so much for me. That's like when I tell people about this stuff, I'll be like, look at when you go to the beach and you really just sit in the sun and you really allow yourself to just do nothing and you go into the water, you come back, how do you feel? Oh, it's one of the best feelings. Oh, I feel brand new. And I'm like, what do you think does that? What do you think does that? The earth, the sand, the sun, the water. It's like one of those, and it shouldn't be how I feel. Like we've been taught like that's something you only do special occasion, like that's not accessible all the time. Especially, I understand if you like live in the city and stuff like that. But when I started to realize how healing it was, going to the beach by myself started to become a priority. Walking through Central Park, walking through Prospect Park, walking through, you feel me? Like all of that started to become a priority to the point where I love home, but it was more concrete than nature. And I was like, I gotta go because I need it. I need it. I feel so depleted when I'm away from nature for a long time. And I believe we spoke about this in one of the previous episodes, spiritual hygiene. Like not only is it healing the earth, but it's like a reciprocal thing. It's a mirroring. We're healing her, she's healing us, and it just keeps perpetuating this cycle of just beauty and growth. And also, I feel another point I wanted to make, like, because a lot of people won't even understand, like, oh, I got everything here. It's like this in the island. It's mad work. You got to do this, but I could just go down the block and get that. And it's like, I get it. But it's like, I feel like with the way things are going in this world too, I personally do not want to be so dependent on things that are outside of me. With inflation and all this other stuff, like I came to a realization years ago that one of my main goals is to be self-sufficient. And yes, it is a lot of work. It's not you just plant some seeds and then things grow and it's all, but that's where self-love and putting, like we go hard to so many things. We sit here and we put things on a pedestal and you ask somebody the things they're willing to go hard for and it's like no judgment but like it's like when you look at things in hindsight and people say like, oh, farming and all that, that's too much, but I'm like, damn, but you're about to feed yourself. Like it's not just something you're doing, like you're about to feed yourself, you're about to be totally independent. And so you want to talk about real independence, like You feel me? And it creates this wave of change. And our ancestors knew how to do things where everything was balanced, where they were so in tune with the ecosystem, like that protection you talked about. They say, I saw something where the birds were kind of warning the people over, I think it was in Syria where the earthquake was. The birds were warning the people, but not too many people took heed because they probably thought the birds were just being weird. But when you are connected to nature and you know how to look for these things, you would have seen that and been like, hold up, something's about to come, because this is not, they don't act like this. Like our indigenous ancestors, the shift, even the indigenous that still exists today, if there's a shift in the wind, if there's a shift in like the rainy season or something like that, they could tell you straight up and down, they could feel something's not right. The wind doesn't usually blow this way this time of year, or the rains don't usually come, or the temperature is not usually this hot, or the birds don't usually fly in this direction, or the butterfly. Like, people were able to, with the bees. I was watching something in Jamaica where the Rastas, they knew something was off with the ecosystem because of something that the bees were doing that they never did. And that's what being in tune with the ecosystem is. Everybody's like, oh, we didn't see it coming. But nature always tells us, like, there's signs and there's things everywhere, but it's us, we're so far from our natural way of being that we miss all of it. Why? Because we're so reliant on the news and we're reliant on all these other things to tell us what's going on, instead of being reliant on what we were originally created to be relying on, which is ourselves and Mother Nature. So I feel like, yeah, I'm not knocking technology. I'm not knocking the modern way of doing. I'm not. But where's the balance? Because a lot of this convenience and a lot of these things that we're so attached to it has overrun the way we were created to do things. That's why a lot of us are walking around feeling so empty and feeling so like there's something missing, and we just keep filling ourselves with these things that they're not meant to fill us, and we just keep straying farther and farther and farther away. And I feel like the more we resist and the more we stray farther and farther and farther away from um the natural way of being, the natural order of things, the more difficult it's going to be to live and to live comfortably coming up. I feel like we have a choice right now, but pretty soon we're not going to have much of a choice. So that's another reason why I wanted to speak on this, because as someone who is a truth seeker, it is also my job to share the truths that come to me. Not expecting everybody to agree, but that's just how I feel. And those are the things that have come to me. So, yeah.
You know what's been on my mind? I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a campaign going on to save the soil. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Hashtag save the soil. You know, I saw it last year and I was like, okay, there's something going on, whatever, whatever. But then I'm walking around in my neighborhood and I realized, there's, little patches of grass. This is New York City, so there's little patches of grass, here and there. And there's a patch around the corner from me, and I noticed that it was completely bare, like it was just dirt now, right? But I'm realizing, like, it used to be lush, it used to be rich soil. Now it's just dry dirt. And not only that, in Prospect Park, in a section that we would typically have our Reiki in the Park series, at one point, like, it was lush in March. By June, it was dry. You know what I'm saying? So there is something happening to the soil. And imagine the soil is losing its nutrients. If the soil loses its nutrients, we cannot survive here. We cannot live here, because that is what grows the food. It's the soil. So if we don't have good soil, then we don't have good food. And if we see, this is the thing, as indigenous beings of this earth, we have to begin to pay attention to the signs that's happening all around us so that we can shift accordingly. We can shift with the shift that's happening on the planet naturally. And we have to pay attention to what's going on. They're buying up all the farmland. They don't allow you to grow your own food on your own property. They ban you from collecting rainwater. You know what I'm saying? That is to pigeonhole you into a particular situation so that you can remain reliant on this failing system. So this is where we are. This is why it's so important to talk about returning to the ancestral lands. It doesn't just mean booking a ticket and going and taking pictures and popping on your IG and TikTok. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that. It means going into the soil, reconnecting with the soil, because this earth needs our energy. We need her as much as she needs us. So it's very deep and it's very concerning. And I don't know how much longer we can live in how we're living. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel everything you were saying, and it's crazy because while you were talking and you were saying how Mother Nature needs us, or Daughter Nature, whatever you refer to her as, how she needs us as much as we need her. I was gonna be like, actually, she could get rid of all of us. She'll be just fine. But we don't want that to happen. So before she gets tired of our presence here, no, but seriously, um, it's like we were meant to live in harmony with her and to live in a way where it's just we're taking care of each other. Honestly, like at the end of the day, no matter what planet you feel you're from, no matter what country or whatever the case is, where you are currently, the best thing to do is to take care of where you are currently. Like most of us, I'm pretty sure y'all don't like when people walk in with dirty shoes, dirty intention, dirty hands, or comes in here and you wouldn't like for somebody to trash your home. Well, guess what? Everything on this planet is home. If it's not home to us per se, it's home to an animal, a living being. And unfortunately, we've been taught that human beings are superior and we don't need to pay attention to certain things. But I feel like that is one of the most arrogant things that we were, because at the end of the day, a lot of these animals or this grass or whatever it get and these natural raw materials that come from earth, like the phone that we're recording this on, where do you think it comes from? It comes from material from earth that we abuse to get. And then we wondering why all these things are happening and all this you feel, and we want to blame it on this and blame it on that. And a lot of us don't even do basic things like recycle, or we don't even sit here and respect. And like when we're somewhere natural, we don't even respect it enough to pick up the trash or to leave an offering or to say thank you to the sun for not burning us alive. You feel me? Or saying thank you to the ocean for not drowning us and getting rid of us, because it can. Please don't get it twisted. Like that can happen and no problem, but it doesn't, because somewhere there's people somewhere somehow who are still keeping these things at bay. I always said the indigenous cultures and the indigenous tribes that still exist are the reason why humanity hasn't been killed off, hasn't been like, because they are keeping the reverence and the balance in order while the rest of us are just acting like none of it matters when it does. um so I also wanted to touch on when you were talking about the soil. I'm so glad you brought that up because I just recently watched a documentary. Well, not recently, I'm lying. A couple of months ago, I watched a documentary and it was about the soil. I believe it was on Amazon Prime. Don't quote me on that, but If you Google any documentary on soil, I'm more than sure that it'll come up. And it was talking about, it went around the whole world, because it's not just here in America, around basically the whole world in some parts. In a lot of places of the world, the soil is dead. Like you said, there are no nutrients in the soil because we've strayed so far away from the way the indigenous and the way our ancestors did things. The way they planted the food was in harmony with the natural way of the soil. Like, I was reading this book called Braiding Sweetgrass, and the author, her ancestors are from this land, and they would plant something called the Three Sisters, and it was bean squash, and I'm sorry, corn, squash, and beans. And they would plant these things together because one one crop helped the other, and then not only on the surface but underneath the root system, because there's different root systems, there's different size roots, there's different plants that give off different nutrients that help other roots and that help soil, that help that soil goes from there and it communicates over there. And the same thing with fungi, with mushrooms. They release certain nutrients and things into the soil, and they all communicate. It's like a whole nother galaxy and a whole nother city in the soil. With that being said, we've become so obsessed with profit, so obsessed with instant gratification, that certain group of individuals who came on this land decided to say, "Now we're not doing that because it takes too long," and they started doing monoculture. And monoculture is when you planting only one of the same crop into the thing, like a whole. I know if anybody's been on the plane or been on road trips, all you see is thousands of acres of corn or thousands of acres of wheat. And people are not realizing, yo, that's what's killing the soil right there. And that's not even including the pesticides and all this chemical things. I was about to curse because I'm a little passionate about this. Like, all of these chemicals that they're throwing and that we're consuming, and it's killing. Oh, I don't like bugs in my soil. What you think the bugs are there for? I don't like worms. You don't even understand how the worm gives so much nutrition. You like eating burgers, right? The cows that are eating this grass from that provide that burger, you like, they don't even giving you the nutrients that our ancestors once got from that meat. Like, me personally, I no longer eat meat. And I've always heard the argument, well, our ancestors ate meat. I'm like, yeah, but you gotta also understand they was eating from a different soil and a different ecosystem than we are now. They weren't eating the chemicals that are being pumped. I'm not even going to get into all that, but it was just a whole different way of doing things. And we have, because of the money and the greed, it has just totally turned things basically upside down. And now we're finding ourselves to a point where we're doing things like growing things in water hydroponically, or we're dealing with bioengineered food because we done messed up everything so bad. So this all ties in with really taking time and returning to our ancestral ways of being. So I'm not saying, that you have to throw on a loincloth and go swinging in the trees. And, even though that don't sound too bad, because I'll be thinking about it sometimes, but it's just really finding the balance and really thinking about the way things used to be done. Because I know a lot of people or society wants to teach that was a delayed way, or we've advanced and we're smarter. Nah. If you really think about it, our ancestors were geniuses. The indigenous were geniuses. Okay, they did things that you can't even fathom doing today. They didn't go down the block to the Chinese spot to get food. Okay, they went and they got it, and they made clothes with it. They blessed the village with it. They sat there and they worked in harmony. So many values and so many traditions that we've lost. And then we wonder why there's so much pain and there's so much suffering and sickness now. So I just tie this all in. Like, this is why I say I feel like is so important and it's so imperative to really allow yourself to maybe just research, or if you've been feeling a call like, damn, I want to go to my grandmother's hometown or something like that. Even if you don't even go there, and going somewhere different, like going to South America, Central America, going back to Africa, even if you just go to visit, just to find or see, or even right here in the US too, there's plenty of places that you could go where you could really get that connection back with the earth and with nature. I'm here to tell you, follow that, because that has been one of the best things that I've ever allowed myself to do. And now I can't even fathom doing anything else.
Primitive was the word. That's what they told us it was. It was primitive.
There you go.
Yeah. So, and like you said, our ancestors were genius. They knew how to live in harmony with the earth, with the cosmos, and that's why everything worked out for them, you know? Well, let's not even get into that, because there's a lot of forces on the planet that need to be eradicated, and that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, so for people like me, you know, I have a daughter, and so I'm not gonna lie, there's a little bit of fear. There's a little bit of fear of picking up and leaving everything that I knew and what was, you know, comforting to me and going. But I know in my heart that that's what I desire. So what am I doing now? I am making preparations to make my exit. And so we have to begin to start strategizing, you know, getting together with like-minded people, like-minded communities who are of that same frequency, who want to move in unison with the earth and with each other, because this is the culture that we're returning to: community culture, oneness with the earth, oneness with the cosmos. This is the natural order of things, and this is what we're returning to. So I would suggest work on building your strategy, release the fear, and do not overthink it. It's very simple. Don't overthink it. Make the plans and make the move.
Yeah, V, I agree with you 100%. And just one last thing before we wrap up, I wanted to say, like, even if you do feel a little fear when it comes to making certain changes and embarking in like a total lifestyle change or mindset or things like that, yo, even if you feel the fear, try not to let that fear consume and dictate or hold you back from doing something that your mind, body, and soul is really calling you or asking you to do.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Quantum Talks, Healing Through Conversations. Tune in next week for a brand new episode. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Next, we have our collective message with Chris.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome, welcome. Again, as always, thank you for tuning in to Quantum Talks. We are now doing the tarot portion, the pull a card portion of today's episode. I hope this message reaches you, reaches whoever needs exactly when they need it. So yeah, let's pray. Father God, prime source, ancestors, angels, guides, ascended masters, I pray to you to please come in and give us a message of guidance, confirmation, clarity. Give us any messages or anything that may be needed at this time. I thank you guys for being with us. I thank you guys for guiding us, for using me as a vessel. And I thank the ancestors, the angels, the guides of everyone who's listening or watching. Thank you for trusting me to make these messages, and thank you for receiving. So yes, I'm just gonna shuffle a couple of more times, and I'm gonna break the deck. Get onto the message. Right. Message. Oh, all right. That was fast. River got something to say. So the card that came out today was the Hermit. Now, this is interesting because we've been, all right, see the card? She's sitting on a lighthouse. There's ships going by, but she's sitting above them. There's birds. Um, it's a mermaid too. So, and she's on top of the world. That's interesting to me. I feel like with this card and with today's episode, this could be like a confirmation, and this could be, first of all, the Hermit card is of, it usually means like retreating, taking a moment of solitude, taking a moment to really sit back and process our lives, whether that's spiritually, mentally, emotionally, just taking back and separating from, um like, I guess, yeah, the word that's coming to me is society at large, separating from the noise, separating from like the hustle and bustle of every day, the hustle of our everyday routines, and really making our alone time, and making, um taking time out to sit with ourselves and to sit in a bit of this hermit mode. Because if you think of hermit crabs, they always retreat into their shells for their safety and for their home and things like that. So I think that this card came out as a message from spirit saying that it's time for us to retreat from the noise, and to retreat from other people's opinions, and to retreat from things that we think we know, things that we think we need to be doing, and really take time to sit in some silence, sit in some stillness, and sit. Hey, this could be, a sign to like really return home, take time to return home to ourselves, whether that be, physically, mentally, or spiritually, and really seeing what's for us, seeing how far we've come, seeing how far we still need to go, and allowing what wants to come through to come through. And a lot of the times that can happen until we sit there and we hide away for a little bit. And I'm sorry, something else is coming through. So it doesn't happen until we allow ourselves to pull back from the things that we're currently doing, whether that's social groups, always being there for people, or really overextending, things like that. It's a time to take all that energy and pour it into ourselves, because clearly there is something that spirit wants us to see. So that is the message for today. Again, thank you for joining us, and don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to do your own thing, and don't be afraid to go on a small hiatus, just like we did from the podcast for like a week or two. So if you've been feeling like you need a break, this is your confirmation to take one. And then, don't worry, because you're going to come back better than ever. You're going to come back refreshed, and you're going to come back knowing exactly what you need to do to move forward. So again, thank you, and we'll see you next week. Later.